When we had last left Team Watcher, they were traveling about the creepy spore and fungus-infested halls of the Forgotten Sanctum, the archival, the archives wing, the archives section, specifically the quarantine area. Yes, quarantine from the rest because of the terrible fungus that did infect not just the beings there in the area, but the very books themselves. Books that Team Watcher did seek to read. And read they did. This is Pillars of Eternity 2, Deadfire, the Forgotten Sanctum. Let us unhide all this. Now maybe this will be our last bout of reading? I'm not sure. Okay. Let's see here. Did we already check all this? Yes, we did. And over here, what have we got? Magronic Benediction. Oh, here we are. Neither let thy trials burden thee, for in thy suffering thou shalt be transformed. The ever-living flame will burn away thine impurities. Purification shall be thine. The fire of thy God shall be the vessel. Seek not to clash, search not for conflict. These will find all in turn. The fires of strife will consume thee, but fear not the battle, fear not the war. Embrace the strife, but turn thyself away. Turn thyself from the struggle. Keep thyself strong against those that would batter thee. Keep thy soul fortified against the trials that shall overtake thee. Fire, flame, the searing heat of Magrin's fury. All these await the unfaithful, the weak, those that help not themselves. Take heart in thine own strength. Take comfort in thine own power. Take control of thine own path. Let the fire guide you. Let the fire transform you. Let the fire purify you. Let the fire consume you. Oh my gosh. Alright, we'll take that, yeah. Magrin, very much about transformation. Right. Monsters of the Deadfire Archipelago. We've definitely read this, right? Yeah, no need to read that. That's not incredibly pertinent. I definitely still recall most of that. Nothing is lost. The search for Ukaizo. This could be... We read this before for sure, but this could be additionally relevant now, right? So maybe we do a quick reread. Nothing is lost. The search for Ukaizo. Excerpted from Nothing is Lost. The collected journals of Wanamora Wave Chaser. The Ranga's men came to collect my portion of prize share this morning, and I had nothing to give them again. I make no money for the tribe, though I am always in my little ferry boat, Grey Gull, carving through the waves. At night, I get no sleep. Waitaro asks me to conserve the lamp oil and to come to bed, but I can't. Not until I find it. I know it's out there, the lost city of Ukaizo. On every chart and map of the Deadfire I've found, whether Huana, Valian, or Rawatayan, there is a gap. An empty space where so much of our history should be. Did it burn to ash and cinders in the cataclysm? Did it sink below the waves? Does Ungati clutch it to her breast at the bottom of the sea? Perhaps it's lost and wandering, like me, unmoored, looking for a home it can't remember, but for which some incessant longing burns in its chest, an ember always smoldering, a little fire to push it on. Waitaro wants me to give up, but how can I? On mornings when the sky is so clear, I can hardly catch my breath for the beauty of it. I think I see it out there, shimmering in the brightening blue light. Is it a taunt or a beckoning? Would I be able to tell the difference? I ask the fisher folk when they return with their catch at sunset. Tibere, I say, did you see anything? Or you, Mabori? How about you, Puira? They avoid me now. Waitaro says they're busy, but I know they think I'm tide-sick and sun-addled. The way Puira's lip curls in disgust when I approach. The way Tibere's eyes seem to see right through me. I know. They won't have to suffer me much longer, because tomorrow I'm taking Grey Gull and sailing north. Someone has to chase the old tales, so I will. Huh. I wonder if we'll find either this person or their remains at some point. Wanamora Wave Chaser. We'll have to try and remember that. On the Fireforged Path, the travels of Yarick Yilton. Excerpt from On the Fireforged Path, the travels of Yarick Yilton. Though I was born and raised a Mogranite, and a Mogranite now, I will stay, as a young man, I undertook a pilgrimage to visit a holy house dedicated to every god. In so doing, I hoped to know them each the better, to take what they had to teach and sow it into my soul like so many seeds, that my soul might grow and bear only the most delectable fruit for my goddess to devour at the moment of my death. So it is with no small amount of amusement that I pen this account of my visit once to a church of Wall, the many-eyed, many-tongued god of dreams and secrets, revelations and mysteries, and reveal to you all I learned there. Ooh, this will be especially pertinent, I guess. The challenge came first in finding adherents to Wall's doctrine, for they are not often ones to announce their presence, preferring instead to build their flock from solitary seekers who delve through ancient ruins and ruined archives in search of the strange, the bizarre, the forgotten. But persistence is my goddess's first teaching, and find them I did. You know, I bet Wall and Andra have a very interesting relationship, right? Huh. Weird. Alright, the Wallites' Nekatakan congregation was small then, as it likely remains now, and on the morning I stumbled upon them, they were lounging like so many cats in the sun on the steps above Queen's Berth, sharing between them a bottle of Arak and pipes packed with white leaf and ripple sponge. I knew them for Wallites, not for any badge or robe or trinket they wore, not for their race or age, but for the ardor of their debate on most benign of topics. I begged that they take me to their church and permit me to worship with them, and they laughed as one, their many voices like the howling of wild dogs. They acquiesced when I told them of my quest, and then invited me to sit and share their drink. I did, and as the Arak burned a trail of fire down my throat, they showed me the dimensions of their hall of worship. The stairs were their pews, they said, the blue sky their ceiling, and their walls the edges of the world. All of creation sits within its bounds. Do you think, especially talk of this person being a Mogranite, do you think Mogranites especially love really strong alcohol that burns you immensely when you drink it? That feels like something that Mogran would be about, right? As morning neared midday, they stood as one and began to climb the mountain. "Where do you go now?" I asked. "To worship," they replied. A great wave of relief washed over me, for at last I would have my lesson from them. We climbed the many steps of Nekataka and arrived at last in the sacred stair. "Where is your temple?" I asked, and in response, they whooped like children, rushing past me in a squall of smoke and laughter. I followed as best I could, though I wet my good slippers in a stream and could hardly keep my feet on the moss-slick stones, and we surged, soggy-footed and hollering, into the Temple of Gaun. To worship, they cried. We shoved past Dawnstars bent in praise of their macabre god, laughing all the while, and came to stand before a leafless tree whose boughs were hung in lanterns too numerous to count. I had nary a moment to catch my breath before the Wallites were clambering into the great tree's branches. A young man pulled me up with one hand and handed me a pipe with the other. The priest of Gaun screeched and wailed, and all the while we squawked like birds, our smiles wide and eyes alight with a rock and lantern fire. The Mataru came soon after to chase us away, but not before we'd done our share of singing to the many-eyed, many-tongued god of dreams. Would that I could have stayed with them a while longer, but alas, I could not deny my soul its journey, nor the whispers of my goddess in my ear. I took again to the road in search of churches, but I must admit, I longed always for that tree. Huh! Weird. And we have definitely seen that tree, right? The Most Unfortunate Tale of Favia and Bernat, a Valiant Tragedy. These are just like little works of maybe fiction surrounding the various pantheons of Eora. Alright, The Most Unfortunate Tale of Favia and Bernat, a Valiant Tragedy. Scene. Laia watches Bernat approach Favia's tree, looking for her human form. Laia. Behold, now comes the fun. That for which I have waited. His love is forfeit, her life is forfeit, and all I have worked toward shall be fulfilled. He says he knows his love. He says no force in the world could keep him from her. But what chances has force against guile? Never will he find his love, for she is no longer his love. The spell cannot be undone, except by her death. And by then, it will be too late. But wait, he has seen her. Laia steps back to observe. Favia. Pray, mortal, why have you come here? These woods are not for your kind. The affairs of men have no place at this tree. Leave ere your welcome lapses. Bernat. Foul creature, where is my love? What have you done with her? Always this has been the station for our encounters. Never before have I seen you. Where is my love? Answer ere my patience lapses. Favia. Fool! This is my land, and this is my tree! Your presence never before has been felt. Again I say to you, leave! My generosity will not be extended a third time. Laia steps forward again. Laia. Talk, discussion. I know the way to hurry the conclusion of this tale. Laia takes a breath and extends her throat as if she's yelling. A scream comes from the copse of trees where the puigra stand. Oh, fuck, how do you say it? Puigra stands. Bernat. My love! Bernat steps forward, brandishing his sword. Bernat. Prepare yourself, wretch, for not even death can stand between me and my love. I will have her from you, or you will meet your end. Bernat moves toward Favia, who closes to fight. They fight. During the fight, Bernat is grievously injured as he delivers the killing blow to Favia. She falls to the ground, and as she dies, the spell on her breaks, transforming her back into her Delemgan form. Favia. Oh wait, which one is Favia? Okay, yeah. Bernat, my love! What have you done to me? What was it I said? What was it I did? Has our love soured in your heart? Bernat. Favia, my love, my life! What foul sorcery has befallen you? How have you come to be laid low by my hand? Fie! Fie to the gods for such treachery! Fie to all who stood in our way! Favia. Fear not, my beloved, for now we are together, and together we'll always will be. Nothing can keep us apart, but lo! Why is it suddenly so dark? Where has the sun gone? Where are you? I cannot see you. I will find you. I will... Favia dies. Bernat. A curse upon the fiend who has betrayed me! To hold love in your hand and have it wrenched away! Bernat winces and puts his hand in his shirt. It comes out, covered in blood. Bernat. What luck! What chance! Tragedy may yet turn to fortune! Favia, my love, soon I will rest in your arms. We will lie together again as one, and forever shall we be side by side. I go now to meet my love. Berath, I accept your cold embrace. I welcome your complacency, or your company. I beg your mercy. Bernat lies down next to Favia's body. Bernat. I am ready. Bernat dies. Laia steps out from her hiding spot and runs to Bernat's body. Laia. Bernat, you fool, you wretch! How could you leave me? I am alone, I am forgotten, I am cast out. Without your love, how can I continue? Life holds no thrall without your visage upon which I may gaze. What shall I do? But here, my salvation, my answer! Laia picks up Bernat's sword. Laia. His blade, his weapon. I shall be impaled upon him, and he shall cut through me. I will not be denied my love. I will not be denied my love. You will be mine, if not in this life, then in the next. Laia impales herself on the sword. Laia. I come for you, my love, Bernat. Wait for me, and I will find you. We shall love forever. Laia dies. Wow, it really is a tragedy. It's a very Shakespearean, huh? Incredible, great. All right,
got it.
Over here. What have we got? Oh my gosh, who would have thought? Some fucking books! All right. Oh God, it's another play? Oh dear Lord. Oh, I remember this one. All right, we'll skip this one. I definitely remember this one. Fuck, I can't do another play. Writ of Brenthis to Rhaega. On order of the most holy Brenthis to be executed forthwith until withdrawn. What a name. Yadafurlus the Ancient grows restless of late. Seek additional bodies with which to satiate the beast. The boundary for patrolling the island shall be expanded by 15 leagues. And do not forget, the Ancient prefers larger game when possible. May the goddess burn ever stronger within you. Brenthis to Rhaega. Who is Brenthis to Rhaega, and what great beast? What ancient? Sounds almost like a dragon or something, right? But I'm not sure.
Look at this.
Maybe something worse.
Be cautious.
Okay,
Be constant.
what do we got over here? Oh my God. It's the complete collection of the Deerwood! Holy shit! All 6 volumes! Oh my God! We have to read it all in order. Absolutely, we have to do that. Oh look, Bakarna's depleted grimoire. Oh fucking shit! Quest item as well. The extensive runes and annotations in this grimoire have mostly faded from the page. Additionally, the text seems to be encoded by a complex cipher. The book is of no use to anyone in its current state. Ooh. Scanite scripture. Ooh, I enjoy a lot of the scan shit, to be sure. I do appreciate a lot of the, you know, we it's a little weird us going on to mention, like, the duality of a lot of these gods, right? But a lot of them do have a duality, despite Berath being the most obvious of them, right? Berath is, like, the most forwardly presenting god of any sort of duality, right? So much so that they're often represented as 2 beings, 2 separate entities, right? But Scan has this interesting sort of, like, dueling, I don't know, motifs, if you will? Maybe that's the right word? I'm not sure. You get what I'm saying, though. Scanite scripture. Burn. Feel thy hatred twist within thee. Feed thyself on its bile. Sustain thyself on its anger. This hatred, this bile, this anger, these shall be the tools for thy rebellion. Rebellion. I prefer the wheat bellion. Fuck me. Let thine heart seethe. There is no satisfaction in open confrontation. Hide thine hatred, let it grow that it may fester. Make thy plots in secret. The quiet slave stays in the shadows. His face seeks not the light. In darkness doth he work, in darkness doth he move. Rebel against those that seek to control thee. rebel against those that wish to remove thee. Ooh. Not really fanciful and artsy at all. It's just like harsh and kind of brutal and to the point, right? I kind of appreciate that. Aim, Sparente, Deadfire lines. These are all shanties, I believe. Yep. Neat. Cool that they finally put them down in words somewhere for you. Though I think already, like, wikis and such had collected it before. Alright. Let's check this orb first. Oh my gosh, it's got eyeball in it and some golden swole. Okay. Anything else before we go and read through this entire collection? This will probably take up the remainder of the video, reading this entire 6-part collection. But I kind of enjoy the idea of reading all 6 parts back to back to back, because it's a rarity, right, to be able to have such a luxury as this. Alright, before we begin, I'm going to take a quick drink as well, pardon me. Alright. The Deerwood. Part 1, Early Colonial History. Some of this will have retraced, but like I said, I think it's good to read it all back to back to back. No other land has such a wild and bloody recent history. From colony to Palatinate to free republic, the Deerwood has undergone a trial by fire to emerge as a powerful force of the Eastern Reach. Deerwood's history actually begins in Adir, in 2602 AI. And we found out that's Anno... Oh shit, in that person's name. Yeah, Dire or something like that. Whoever invented the calendar. Adir explorers returned from a journey across the ocean with tales of the treasures they'd found. They discovered countless ruins scattered through the forests, as well as plains to the north of the trees that would be perfect for growing Vorlis. There was a problem, however. The locals were hostile, and there was potential for conflict. The Ferscheninge of Adir, Ferkeninge, First King, knew that this was too good an opportunity to pass up, and sent more explorers to scout and map the area. Exploration continued over the next 20 years. Small groups of explorers traveled back and forth between Adir and this new world, with a handful of colonists setting up small camps to establish a base for the explorers to work out of. Conflicts with the locals, who the Adirans learned are called the Glonfathans, were rare, but frequent enough for the First King to send a small squadron of guards to help protect his citizens. These guards established a central base on a river in the western section of the woods. This settlement would eventually become the city of Deerford, upon which the modern-day village of the same name is presently built. Once that base was established, the first permanent Adiran settlements began north and west of the Bale River. Over the next 3 years, thousands of Adirans would made the trek from Adir to this new land. The Glonfathans, who seemed to revere the ruins scattered through the forests, caused a few problems with some of the settlements, especially those founded near the ruins themselves. These were easily taken care of by the colonists with the help of the Imperial Guard. The Adirans, in order to further their foothold in the area, reduced the cost of production, and in an attempt to keep the Glonfathan population under control, started making slaves out of any Glonfathans captured during the uprisings. This resulted in a great increase in tension between the two groups. Yeah, no kidding, huh? Good God. Huh. So did they not practice slavery beforehand then? This almost makes it seem like they just decided over here to just begin doing that, right, for the first time, and that Adiran Empire wasn't a slave-utilizing empire beforehand? I'm not sure. Well, maybe if it were, they would say, like, they started making slaves for the first time. They began a new practice, right? I feel like if it were a new practice, they would say as much, rather than, like, yeah, they started making slaves out of Glonfathans. Okay, yeah, I think I will safely assume for now, until we learn otherwise, that the Adiran Empire did have slavery before they began to colonize the Deerwood. Alright, With the population of the area growing, an official government structure was established by the first king. He appointed several earls to preside over the land, and assigned them thanes to help run their territories, and they called the new Grafrum the Deerwood. Deerford remained the center for the Imperial Guard, but the settlement in Pearlwood Gulf, New Dunreed, was the true seat of power for the area. Sitting at the edge of the ocean, forest, fertile farmland, and a river that runs from the coast to the White Marsh, settlers flocked to the area, hoping to establish names for themselves. Aedir began to spread across the new land. Yoink. The Broken Stone War. In 2626 AI, a group of farmers, while clearing farmland for planting, accidentally knocked down one of the ancient Audra menhirs on their land. This innocent act drew the ire of the native population and started what would come to be known as the Broken Stone War. Right, and there's other books that call into question whether or not this was an innocent mistake, right? Or if it were malicious, like they intentionally knocked it over to be shitty. When it was finally over, several thousand colonists have been killed, as well as hundreds of the Glonfathans. Even though the war was technically over, the Glonfathans escalated their attacks on the settlers over the next 2 years using vicious tactics that left many colonists, several military figures, an earl, and 6 thanes dead. Honestly, good. Fuck them. I'm inclined to believe that it was not an accident, that they really were being shitty. Unable to stop the Glonfathan attacks, the earls elected Earl Edrange Hadrid to the position of Grave. Well respected and known to be a master of military tactics, he was tasked with dealing with the Glonfathan threat. Edrange fought with the Glonfathans, led by an Orlan named Reged, for the next 2 years. Neither side can gain the upper hand on the other, resulting in a tense stalemate between the two groups. Because of this stalemate, the hostilities slowly died off, and in 2631, the Deerwooden people signed a treaty with the Glonfathans. Reged would step down, the Glonfathans would stop their attacks altogether, and the Deerwooden people would leave the ruins alone. This treaty angered the nobility in Aedir, as it brought to a halt the supply of artifacts. Edrange also tried to get the practice of slavery outlawed, but this was not successful. Because of this, the peace between the Deerwood and Air Glonfath is uneasy and tumultuous. Small patches of rural violence still cropped up, but were easily dealt with, as neither side wanted another war. Interesting. I'm not even sure if that's entirely true. Well, maybe, yeah, I could definitely see the Glonfathans not wanting another war in some cases, because as much as you would love to, fight for what's yours and shit, in the face of this, military force that has recently arrived, maybe the loss of life is not worth it in some cases. You can definitely see how some people would reason one way or the other, right? Makes sense. Very well realized, I would say. Alright. Part 3, The War of Black Trees and the Rise of Admeth Hadrid. This one we read, so we'll go relatively quickly. After the Broken Stone War, the Deerwood would see peace and prosperity for 21 years. Aside from the occasional slave uprising or border dispute, nothing of any note happened until 2652 AI. Some of the Deerwooden earls, tired of being restricted by the treaties and encouraged by imperial sources, defied the decrees and actively sent people to loot the ruins in the Deerwood. Response from the Glonfathans was not immediate, but when it came, it was brutal and bloody. There was a slave uprising, and Reged resumed control of his guerrilla fighters. A contingent of Delemgan joined the forces as well, making the fights in the forest even more deadly for the Deerwooden soldiers. Edrange, then far too old to lead Deerwood in the war, sent his son Admeth to deal with the situation. Admeth, showing the same tactical prowess as his father, set fire to the forest at the Ish Uar River, and then blocks the forces retreating from the Inferno. Some of the Glonfathans escape, but thousands would die in the blaze. Rejd is captured and sent to holding in New Haemar. This goes on for several months, and Admeth uses the same tactic many times to flush Glonfathans and Delemgan from the battlefield. The entire war lasts less than a year. The Deerwood eventually wins, but at a terrible price. This conflict would come to be known as the War of Black Trees. Yeah, I think this anthology of books very clearly written from the perspective of someone in the Deerwood, because it doesn't necessarily always show the Aediran Empire in a charitable light, right? And of course, it definitely doesn't. It's not very sympathetic toward the Glonfathans until it suits them. Let's see. Tragedy struck the Deerwood in 2654, when Adrange, whose health had been waning, succumbed and passed into the cycle. Rejd, who had developed a begrudging respect for his constant adversary over the years they had fought, sent Admeth his sincere condolences from captivity in New Haemar. Admeth assumed his father's place as grave over the Deerwood. The other earls disliked this development and began publicly rebuking Admeth's decrees. In 2655 AI, Admeth, tired of the problems caused by the recalcitrant earls, but having support of the new Vailian dukes and the common folk of the Okay, I thought this would give specific information on the Vailian dukes, but it's just both terms. Having support of the new Vailian dukes and the common folk of Deerwood, having saved them from the Glonfathans, delivers an ultimatum to the first king of Aedir. He demands to be made a grave palatine. This move would give him authority and power over all the earls, their holdings, and their titles. Deerwood would become a palatinate instead of a grafrum. The first king, who did not want to have to deal with a rebellion while trying to establish a hold on the Vorlous trade network in Raed Saris, begrudgingly agreed to Admeth's demands. Admeth would use this new power to bring all the earls in line. As a trade-off for being given the power, Admeth put money and resources into all the Deerwood's ports to increase shipping traffic. In turn, this increased the First King's income. Under Admeth's rule, the Deerwood saw 7 productive and profitable years. In 2662 AI, he did what had been tried for many years without success, bringing slavery to an end in the Deerwood. He negotiated the 10 Years' Treaties, so called because it has been 10 years since the War of Black Trees. A timeline was established in which the slaves will be released. The owners would be compensated with money or land for each slave released. If they did not comply, the slaves would be taken and a fine will be levied against the owner. In return, the Glonfathans would open trade with the Deerwood and cede some of their territories to the Deerwooden government. In practice, meaning they would stop contesting the presence of those who lived and ruled there. Hundreds of Coopers? Like Coors, maybe? No, Coopers, because Coor, someone who does a coup d'etat, that has a U in it, doesn't it? Yeah. Hundreds of Coopers attempted to rebel against this. No, it must be Coor. Is that how you spell that? I have no idea. Admeth, expecting just such a reaction, reacted accordingly, and the rebellion was quickly crushed. His agents then spread propaganda through the populace, making the Coors rebellion and its instigators seem far worse than they truly were. This tactic worked, and there would be no more trouble. Huh. That's very interesting. I wonder what the specifics of that were. Alright, let's yoink this up. Hadrid's Rebellion, Part 4. The rural communities loved Admeth Hadrid, considering him the best leader they'd ever had. In Aedir, the first king rankled against his usurpations of imperial authority, but no longer had the necessary power to truly undo anything that had happened. 2 years later, in 2664 AI, the first king found allies willing to explore the ruins against the treaty conditions, and plundered them for their artifacts. This was done discreetly at first, but they eventually became careless. The agents were discovered and arrested, but there was no evidence pointing back to the first king. Admeth, suspecting the truth, used Glonfathan Brishalgwyn mind hunters, the progenitors of modern-day ciphers, to investigate the matter further. With this method of interrogation, he discovered a chain of evidence all the way back to the first king. While he investigated, many rural communities suffered retaliatory attacks by Glonfathans. Armed with this new information, Admeth worked with Galvin Medhra, the new leader of the Glonfathans, and the rural communities of the Deerwood to prevent the First King's agents from entering the ruins. There was a back and forth between the two groups, both sides engaging in various political, economic, and military maneuvers to try and gain the upper hand. The First King was at a disadvantage in this game, though, as he preferred to assert his authority without causing an uprising. Eventually, Admeth had enough. He convinced 7 of the 9 earls to join him, and they severed their allegiance to the First King, declaring themselves independent and decree they would govern themselves, just as the Valian Republics did 20 years prior. Oh shit, so the Valian Republics... Oh no, the Valian Republic's breaking off from Old Valia, or Grand Valia, I should say, right? Because the Valian Republics they didn't break off from the Aediran Empire, right? Huh. Let's see here, let's just scan through this. Yeah, they broke off from Grand Valia, or Old Valia, whichever you'd prefer. Okay. Admeth told the people he had tired of policies that made the nobles rich while putting the people of the Deerwood at risk. He declared himself a duke, again modeled after the Valian Republic's governing structure, and called the Deerwood a free politinate. Thus began the War of Defiance in 2668 AI. The war lasted 4 years and caused countless casualties, including Admeth himself. The Deerwoodans, with their Glonfathan allies, were able to persevere. Glonfathan astrologers, alongside the Deerwoodan forces and members of the ad hoc Knights of the Crucible militia, won the Battle of Defiance Bay, which became the last battle of the war and left Deerwood free from Aediran imperial rule. 7 of the 9 earls of the Deerwood survived, and, unified in purpose, signed treaties with the First King of Aedir. The war gave the Deerwood a greater sense of unity between its citizens and their Glonfathan allies. Admeth Hadrid was revered by both groups, and the Deerwood enjoyed for the first time a nationwide fellowship of independence, perseverance, and sacrifice. Yenwood and Swinsrun were dissolved and incorporated into the surrounding earldoms, leaving 7: Hellsgate, the Grasp, Ten Firths, Norwich, Coldwater, Ashfall, and Balereach. New Dunreed was renamed Defiance Bay, and would become the seat of power for the new Duke in Balereach. The new Duke's rule began in 2672 AI. So does all of Pillars 1 take place, well, of course barring the White March, does all of that take place in Balereach? Where is Twin Elms located? Is Twin Elms also in Balereach? Because certainly, well, you go to Deerford. Is Deerford also Balereach? But, like, you don't go so far as to, like, the Pearlwood Coast and shit like that. And Hellsgate, that's the bridge, that's the Evan-Dewar Bridge where that's at, isn't it? Or maybe not. Where is, in what area is the Evan-Dewar Bridge at? That's, like, bordering Raed Saris, isn't it? Because that was the whole point, that Wydwin was marching from Raed Saris into Deerwood, and they stopped him at the bridge. Yeah, I'm not sure. Very interesting if we've only ever been in, like, 1 or maybe 2 of these sections of the Deerwood. Whereas, like, here in Pillars, Deadfire, I'm fairly certain we go to literally everywhere in the Deadfire archipelago, right? Whereas, when it comes to the Deerwood, I don't think we've been to all but 2 of these sections, right? Maybe not, though. Maybe not. Maybe we've been to almost all of them, and I'm just dumb. Could be. Alright. Hadrid's Rebellion, now Part 5, the proliferation of animancy. Now this is shit that we have not read yet, I believe. Animancy, outlawed while under Adir rule, was technically no longer taboo after Hadrid's rebellion. Academics began its study again in earnest in 2681 AI. By 2697 AI, there were almost 40 academics actively studying the field, both in the Deerwood and the Valian republics, even though no significant results had been discovered. A tragic breakthrough of sorts happened in 2704 AI. An animancer working in Bale Reach accidentally shattered the souls of about a dozen volunteers who had been helping him. In retaliation for the deaths, the citizens of the area stormed his house and killed him. The Earl of the region, not wanting to waste resources or anger the locals any more than they already were, did nothing to find the head of the vigilante mob. But neither did he outlaw animancy. To ensure their own safety, most animancers moved from the rural areas where they were studying and settled in Defiance Bay, many of them choosing the emerging and wealthy district of Brackenberry as their new home of operations. Interesting. That's very fascinating that there was the citizens coming in, like, killing them. Because I'd be more sympathetic to them if they weren't already volunteers. Like, if they were just random-ass people. But of course, what were they volunteering for, right? I have no idea what the conditions exactly were with that experiment. So I guess, in summation, like, need more details to make a proper passive judgment, right? Okay. While there were still a few breakthroughs, and the study of animancy continued for the next 24 years, it quickly slowed as it became cost prohibitive and complicated the more people learned about it. Most animancers couldn't afford to continue research without the support of donations or gifts from wealthy individuals and organizations. In 2737 AI, some animancers, desperate to continue their studies and seeing no other means of furthering their research, entered the Forbidden Ruins of Erglonfoth to further their research. They discovered some such sites had strange artifacts that seemed to bear affinity to soul essence, and began to prod at the devices for further insight. Even with continued research, they're unable to tell quite what they have discovered. Eventually, they were found out by the Glonfothans, who captured them, demanding that they be punished for their crimes. Shit don't change! The Deerwooden authorities, in order to maintain their treaties and keep the peace, had no choice. They allowed the animancers to be executed according to Glonfothan tradition. This led the Duke to make an additional proclamation. The study and practice of animancy on or even near the sacred Glonfothan sites would be punishable by death. I mean, you know what? If we had just read this book, that would seem harsh, but in knowing, like, the entirety of the history and all the context, yeah, fucking stay away from that shit, for fuck's sake. Stop fucking around with their shit. Good lord, man. How many times does it have to happen? Good God. In 2780 AI, in order to solidify relations with the Glonfothans, the Deerwooden government allowed some animancers to begin training and experiments in conjunction with the Glonfothan mind hunters, their native ciphers. This was an exchange of information. The animancers documented the secrets of the mind hunters' powers. The mind hunters also learned new techniques for concentration, which assisted them in taking their powers to a level no Glonfothan had seen before. The ciphers, no longer wary of the animancers' intentions, trusted them to such a level that they convinced the Glonfothans to give some animancers limited access to some of the training sites where the Glonfothans practiced. The Onumfoths of the Glonfothan tribes opened the training grounds to the animancers. They were not allowed inside, as this was still strictly forbidden, but the general allowances by the Glonfothans were seen as a breakthrough in relations between the Deerwood and Glonfoth. Over the next 8 years, the animancers' research would continue unimpeded. With the exception of some minor squabbles, there's been no major strife between the two groups for almost 120 years since. Good God! Do you think that's entirely true? Because that'd be fucking wild. Like, all they had to do was be polite and ask. If they were very courteous about it, they would have just let them in. With some limitations, of course, but how much further they had gotten by doing it the right fucking way. Instead, just like, oh shit, let's just sneak into these fucking ruins and fuck with these people's shit. Good lord. Just be kind about it. Fuck's sake. Alright. The Deerwood, Part 6. The Saints' War and Widewind's Legacy. In 2807 AI, war returned to the Deerwood. Saint Widewind transformed supposedly into a living incarnation of Aethys, marched on the Deerwood from Raid Saris, beginning the Saints' War. The Deerwood rallied at Halgut's Citadel, and took the battle to him in Raid Saris, attempting to prevent as much damage to their own land as they could. Even though there were devastating losses for the Deerwooden forces using Hadrid's military techniques combined with Galvin Reg's strategies, they were able to secure a few victories for themselves as well. Raid Sarin forces made their way into the Deerwood through White March, unopposed by the locals at Cold Morn. And we definitely remember, it was the Devil of Karak, right, who had a horror story of Raid Sarin forces marching through there and completely, like, fucking over this, like, totally innocent village and shit, right? Isn't that correct, or am I mistaken? It was some really horrific shit that went down at this small village that the Devil of Karak would speak of. Gosh, I can't believe I forgot the specifics of it. But it was some real, like, fucked up heavy shit. Anyway, unopposed by the locals at Cold Morn. In fact, maybe it was Cold Morn, and they weren't unopposed. Maybe that's exactly it. Leaving Mercy Vale burned and devastated, or maybe that's it. The contempt the Deerwoodens have for Cold Morn for this betrayal lasts well after the war ends. Right, that may have been it. They were fearful of the Raid Sarin forces, so they let them pass, right? And then it was Deerwoodens. They were pissed as shit at them for allowing the troops to go through unabated and burning Mercy Vale. That it was Deerwoodens who came over and completely annihilated, well, not annihilated, but completely fucked over Cold Morn, right? I think that's how it went down. Alright. Desperate to end the war and eliminate Saint Widewind, the Magronic clergy of Deerwood developed a special bomb that was hidden beneath the bridge at Halgut Citadel, intending to lure Widewind to the bridge and then detonate it. Their ploy succeeded, and Saint Widewind was completely destroyed, along with most of the forces with him, and the entire bridge. The 12 Deerwooden men and women who volunteered to delay Saint Widewind on the bridge were also lost. Their sacrifice and martyrdom celebrated by the Deerwood in the ensuing years. What? The 12 Deerwooden men and women who volunteered to delay Saint Widewind on the bridge were also lost. Their sacrifice and martyrdom celebrated by the Deerwood in the ensuing years. There we go. The bomb would come to be known as the Godhammer, and soon after the battle, the citadel was renamed Godhammer's Citadel. Saint Widewind's forces were easily routed after his death, and the Deerwood set about rebuilding from the first major conflict in over a century. In retaliation for Saint Widewind's actions on Aethys' part, many Aethasian followers were purged from Deerwooden communities or driven out via social pressure. Less than a year after the devastation of the Saints' War, tragedy hits again. In 2809 AI, the first Hollowborn was reported in the Deerwood. Many of these poor creatures died within weeks or months of being born. The outcry from the populace calls for blame or punishment be leveled against someone, whether it be the gods, the mothers, or the government or the Aethasian followers. Really, some people cried for the mothers to have punishment leveled against them? Jesus. Man, that is fucked up, but honestly believable. That is fucked up and very believable. I can definitely see that. Responding to great socio-political pressure to try and help the Hollowborn animancers animancers developed a process to transplant animal souls into the infants, that they might develop survival instincts and even a basic personality. The process seemed successful, so it was repeated on tens of thousands of Hollowborn, even though many animancers disagreed with the technique, worried about the ethical implications. These protests were largely ignored and discounted. The process was soon named Salvation, and the Hollowborn given souls this way were called the Saved. Oh my god. Huh. But there were many. It was the majority of animancers disagreed with the practice. Huh. I'm very curious what, like, the exact, like, outline of ethical practices, I guess, for animancy are today, right? Like, what are their... do they have, like, a Hippocratic oath or something? 5 years after the first Hollowborn, an Orland girl is saved. She entered puberty. In a matter of mere weeks, she transformed into a ravenous, feral creature devoid of all conscience. Soon, all of the saved would experience the same fate. Each one, upon reaching puberty, would transform into what the locals call wicts. Or whites, right, is how you pronounce it. Uncontrollable children. After researching the problem, animancers discovered an incompatibility between the animal souls and the children's bodies. This fueled the parents' angers, as many of them had to kill their white children. The animancers responsible were widely denounced, and many of them were dragged from their homes, beaten, and in many cases killed. Most surviving animancers left the rural areas en masse and headed to Defiance Bay. Others left the area completely, moving to the Valian Republics to study in peace. Fuck me. God, yeah. What a fucking dreary-ass situation, right? Good lord. Pillars 1 really begins in just the fucking pits, doesn't it? Man, what a horrific fucking place to be. Do you think, yeah, definitely. I think Pillars 1 has a much darker beginning or darker world setting than...
Yeah, sure.
Than Pillars 2, doesn't it? Well, I don't know. Aethys marching around and shit is pretty fucked up, right? But I think it's more horrific. Maybe because it's directly affecting children that it seems more horrific to me. I'm not sure. Maybe, yeah, maybe that's affecting my read on the situation, is that it affects like children who were reportedly, seemingly doing totally fine until they hit puberty and then they become like feral creatures. Yeah. Maybe that's exactly why it seems more fucked up, when realistically it might be roughly about the same. I'm not sure. It's a hard call to make, and one that, I don't know, you should even decide to make, right? Yeah, I'm not sure if it's even a distinction worth making. Alright, well, when next we come back, holy shit, we have read every fucking book in this area. What's remaining? Well, over here, there's a little something something. Down here, there's a little something something. Is there something up here? Nope, we read all that. Something over here? Nope, we went up there, read all that. And this goes back to the central stacks. Okay, so we've got this section, and this section down here by the tentacles, and then we'll head on out here, oh god, to this restricted section here. Alright. Whew! Until next time, please take care of each other.